All right, welcome back, Math 2. Today we're working on our Unit 2 review. So just like Unit 1, this is going to be a paper that I'm going to put some stuff on it, and then you can fill out the rest of it with whatever you think is going to help you on our test coming up, and that you can use on the test. All right, so remember, this is your paper. You put on it what you need, okay? So I'm just going to go over some things you can expect to see on the test, and maybe I might on mine write what pages maybe you should go back and look at in your notes or rewatch a video if you missed part of it, okay? All right, but first off on there you will have a table to fill out. This would be like page 201 where that guy was tiling his floor and you had to figure out what the area was and seeing that relationship between side length and area as a quadratic function. You do want to know that all of the functions that we're dealing with, if there is an exponent of 2, that is called a quadratic. So that is the name of the function, of all these functions. Okay. And it's probably good to know that a parabola is the name of the graph that U-shape, whether it goes up or down. Okay. You will need to know how to find x and y intercepts. Okay. So those should be pretty simple. That's something you did a lot of, at least the y-intercepts in Math 1, but if you need a refresher, remember that this is where the graph, a y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis, and an x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. Okay. I would really recommend, especially on the first page, just read the directions. There's kind of a story behind it, so you want to make sure you're reading all those directions. Okay. You are going to want to make sure that you understand plugging in the numbers into the calculator in order to create your table. Okay. That seems to be our number one issue. You guys know what you're doing, but you keep plugging them in wrong. If you think you've been doing it wrong or I've had to correct you a lot on it, please make sure you double check with me. Okay? Specifically that negative numbers, if you're plugging in a negative number, it needs to be in parentheses before you square it. Okay. You want to know that a vertex is the point where the graph turns around. It's either that lowest point, so that would be a minimum here, or it's that highest point, so that would be a max. So again, that's the highest or lowest point. You will need to know increasing and decreasing. I think if you need a lot of help with this one, I would go back to, what was it, 202. Okay, that's a good one to go back to if you need it. But overall, increasing and decreasing, you're thinking, okay, left to right, what is my function doing? Is it, so like a lot of times these parabolas, so if, let's say it's a standard one like this. Okay, let's say my vertex is here at 1, something like that. Okay. This interval on the left side, my graph has started out super high and now it's coming down, coming down, coming down. So this is where it is decreasing. Okay. So from negative infinity all the way to 1, it is decreasing. Okay. But then right at 1, right at that vertex is where it turns around and starts going back up. So that is where it is increasing from 1 to positive infinity. It is increasing. You will likely need to know domain and range. Okay, it is probably good to know which one is which. So remember, domain is how far can my graph go from left to right. Range is how far can my graph go up and down in the y direction or in the x direction. Another thing from page 202 that you will need to know is end behavior. Okay. That's going to be a big one. Go back to 202 and watch the video on that. Okay. You will need to be able to find the average rate of change. Okay, which really, remember, rate of change is slope. Okay. So remember, our average rate of change is our y values subtracted on top and our x values subtracted on the bottom. So if they tell you, oh, how about from x equals 1 to x equals 4, and then you go back to your table and you're like, oh, well, when x was 1, y was 1, and when x was 4, y was 16. Then you would take these and combine them into this equation. So I'd say, like, okay, maybe I'll take my bigger numbers minus my smaller numbers. So I'll have 16 minus 1 over 4 minus 1. Then I'll get 15 over 3, which is really 5. Okay. You will need to know the differences in equations mostly of linear, quadratic, and exponential. Mostly they're equations. Okay. And maybe how to find like a y-intercept, something like that. Okay. Again, so you can use the whole back of this. If you wrote smaller than me, which you likely may have, you can use that space to do that as well. But these are some of the things you need to know how to do on your test. Okay. Please let me know if you have more questions or you want some more example problems.